Hugh, how you doing today, brother?
As always, people know me. I say I'm blessed and never stressed.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I'm getting a little of that from you, I think.
Yeah.
I think about that all the time. Yeah. You know, how blessed I am, and how being blessed, you're less stressed, right?
That is true. You got to speak it.
So hey, we've got a really. I'm a little biased here, right? We might have we have the coolest dude of all dudes on our podcast today.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I got a little relationship with this guy, right? But seriously, he's the best. And I got to say, when we look at our guests, we're looking for a top 1% of the industry, right? That somebody that's led their industry to be top 1% and got grown a business, right? Now this isn't quite that, but this is on the way to that. And actually, I think about it, it might be top few percent of an industry that's brand new. We're talking a new industry that this guy's into, and he's it's a small industry, so he might be up there in the top percentage of the space because there's not a lot of people doing it. So today we're going to talk to a guy. Like I said, I know him pretty good. Austin, you say Rabine? Rabine, right?
Rabine, oh yeah, that one, that guy, yeah.
So it's actually Gary Austin
Rabine,
right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people
go by Austin.
Goes by Austin, yeah. But so we're going to question the heck out of Austin.
Yeah, man.
He's had some great success for a young guy and a lot more to come.
And this is what I'm excited about, to be honest, just obviously because I've just had my first son and he's 4 weeks into it. And I think any man out there, they want to leave a legacy, right? And to me, at least, this is extremely exciting to ask you questions, but to be sitting here between both of you all, because you being a second generation entrepreneur on your own, doing your own thing, that is a true legacy testament, and I can only imagine. I mean, I duplicated what you all did, I called my son, he has my name, the exact same way. So I'm excited, man.
Exact same way, so he's not a junior.
He's not a junior, he's a second.
All right.
Yeah, call him Trey, but so, his middle name is Tremaine, right? Well, your middle name is Austin. That's why we call you Austin. So it's the exact same way. So I'm feeling the success principles in this room, and I'm going to duplicate that as well. But really, really excited to be here, share, or more importantly, ask you questions, man, because you got a lot of amazing. You got some great parents, but I'm pretty sure you've had some great success because of some of the things you've implemented. So I'm looking forward to.
So I just got back from India. I talked about that a few episodes ago. I was going to I was inked to go to India for treatment on my son, and I thought maybe myself. And I get there and I got an MRI done, and they said, you don't have epilepsy. You got some scar tissue on your brain, but it's not epilepsy. And I trust these guys. So they said, we don't need to do any treatments on you. You're fine. Actually, they tested my heart and a bunch of other things and said, boy, you're okay, man. You're in good shape. So even though I look like a putz, I'm in pretty good shape. I
look old, but
I look old. I look a little warm, but they say I'm okay. So either way, that was all good. But in India for the first week or so, and my wife had to get an MRI. She had a spell, and so her cancer started to grow back a bit, right? And there's nothing they could do conventionally here. So sure enough, I had enough confidence after being there for a week that this is a pretty solid program that they do on brain diseases and some cancer cures as well. So we got her over there. So my wife is there finishing up now. My daughter's flying out there to be with her the last week, and she's finishing up her treatments at this center that Nick and I were at for over a month. But being there in India, some of the greatest lessons of my life were there. I mean, I've never imagined spending 34 or 5 days in a country I'd never really thought I'd want to be in, right? And here's a country where 90% or thereabouts, 80, 90% they say of their population lives in poverty. So think about that. 80, 90% live in poverty, and their poverty level is way lower than our poverty level in the U.S. So when you think about that, I'm thinking, man, there's got to be some dangerous areas, right? The impoverished areas. I probably don't want to go there, all that, but we went there. My driver, as one of the places he wanted to take us, so I'll take you to the slums, right? And we felt 100% safe in these slums, 100%. And nicest people, I met a lot of people there. At every level in India, the people we met, from some people that were in politics and leadership and business and government, to entrepreneurs, to people from the slums, to my driver who drove me around, who lived just a level above those slums, right? Amazing, loving people. And so you ask, why is that? How is that's the case? Well, I also looked at their murder rates there and their crime rates, and they're way lower than America. So I'm like, how can that be that 90% live in poverty, yet the murder rates and the crime rates are so much lower? And so what do I discover? Something that we're going to talk about today a little bit, right? That Q, you already mentioned. Over 98% of their population, father is in the life of their kids, right? Father, mother, not just father, mother. In many cases, grandma and gramps are living in the same place. Now, these aren't big places. They're a little bigger than my office here, right? And you could have 7, 8 people living in there, a couple people as breadwinners probably, supporting that family. But what I saw was faith community was huge, and all different faiths, right? I met Muslims, I met met some went to Catholic churches, so I met a lot of Catholic people, met some Buddhists, right? Met all these different types of religions, and every one of these people, you could tell, just had this character of compassion and love and respect, right? And the one thing I'll say is no fear. So I'm in the slums, and people are coming up to me wanting pictures with me, right? These little kids and the older people. Hey, can I get a picture? They don't speak my language in most cases. They have like a lot of different languages in India, but they can communicate. Picture, right? And sure enough, I'm doing selfies with all these people, like I'm some type of star over there, right? And they don't know that that I'm this hillbilly guy, but I'm a tall, skinny white guy, old guy. Must be different looking. They want to get. And sure enough, I find out they take pictures of people that like me, or maybe like you too, Q, that they don't see a lot, and they'll put them up on the walls in their house. And I'll say, "What? Who's this?" Well, this is a guy that I got a picture of. All right, looks different, doesn't he? Anyway, but the bottom line is, I found compassion, love, respect, and no fear in the people that were there. Mm-hmm. And how is that? Well, 98%, more than 90% of their families are raised with a father and a mother in their life.
Gotcha.
And so that's huge to me. I just want to reiterate that how important that is. And when we talk about this today, how we raise our families is the most important thing we can do.
Yeah. So let's dive into that. Of course, if you've ever heard the first episode, Gary talks about his upbringing, and now I don't know what episode we're on now, but we're gonna listen to Austin. And why don't you tell us about your upbringing, living in the Rabine household, and how was it? And then we can kind of go from there.
Is he staying for that part?
Yeah, absolutely.
So finally, Austin, we get to talk.
Austin Rabine.
And I just say Austin's a little more like his mom. He's more thoughtful than me as far as that. I talk just because words are rolling off my tongue. Nothing really stays in. Austin's more thoughtful. He's a little. More analytical probably than me, more like his mom, and probably a lot better that way than, a lot better in life to run your life that way. So Austin, let's go, baby.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. So grew up in Johnsburg, McHenry County area with, both my parents in my life, 2 sisters, and then Nick, who came along when I was 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I was 16 when we adopted Nick, and we moved into a new house in Johnsburg at that time. I'm not good at talking about myself.
We'll keep digging into
So
stuff.
let me ask you this. In your first 16 years, that means I'm pretty sure you was around as, the Rabine was paving the driveways and paving around. What are some of the things that you saw as in your upbringing that your dad even implemented, that some of the things that you like, man, let me utilize that as I'm growing up, or that you saw?
Or some of the things you saw and you said, don't ever want to do that.
Yeah,
that's something I don't want to be.
Yeah.
I think that the biggest thing that, from growing up that I saw from my dad and my mom was, work ethic.
Okay.
My dad was always working. He was, growing up, he was on paving crews, right? For a lot of it, probably until I was 13. Probably 12, 13 years old, you're mostly on paving crews and still running the business, and he'd be out snow plowing during storms.
Oh, wow.
So definitely work ethic. He had great work ethic, and I saw that, and he made sure that my sisters and I also had great work ethic. And same thing with my mom. She took care of the house and us kids, and she had great work ethic. Making sure that we were where we needed to be, and we weren't getting into trouble, and making sure that she was there for us. So, I think work ethic was probably the biggest thing that I learned growing up.
What was your first job? Because I'm hearing a lot of these first job similarities out there.
My first official job was would have had to have been lawn mowing.
Okay. All right.
Mowing lawns. But before that, I would do some free labor on paving crews and stuff when my dad needed it.
Okay. All right.
But no, I started started mowing lawns when I was probably 13 years old, 13, 14. And so I borrowed some money from my dad to purchase a lawnmower, and I couldn't drive, obviously, to anywhere too far because I didn't have a driver's license. But I would drive my lawnmower around the neighborhood and put flyers on people's doors to get business from them. And couldn't go too far, so just kind of in the neighborhood or across the street, the neighborhoods I could drive my lawnmower to. So did that from 13 to probably 16 or 17 years old. So then when I was 16, I ended up saving enough money mowing lawns to buy a truck and trailer, and bought a nicer lawnmower, and then I could drive further, around town to mow lawns. So that was probably my first job.
Yeah, so he basically did the exact same thing you did with paving driveways when you were 18. You talked about how you purchased your first, paver, from that perspective, and you said it wasn't the best, and
actually
he did the same thing.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So what happened? What I remember, a little bit of the story I remember is he would see older brothers and sisters getting new cars for their birthdays, right? 16-year-old birthdays are getting new cars, right? And Austin's looking at it, that's pretty cool. And I'm saying, man, Austin, that'll never be you. And he's like, what do you mean? Maybe I could get a car when I'm 16 too. I said, no, you can, but you got to be able to pay for it.
Yeah.
These kids aren't paying for it. And so he said, well, how do I do that? I said, you just got to get a job. You got to make some money, and a lot of money to buy your own car, right? If you want to buy anything like these kids are buying their parents are buying new ones, right? And so we went over the numbers and all that, and I remember showing them, hey, if you do our lawn and these 5 lawns every week, right? I'm paying a guy, so at the time I wasn't mowing my lawn anymore. I'm paying a guy whatever I was paying him, $150 to do my lawn, the big lawn. And I'll pay you 30 or 40, whatever I was paying. I want a discount because you're going to do a lousy job. You're not going to be as good as these guys up front. So anyway, what happened was I remember we had to go buy a lawnmower, and he had some birthday money and this and that. And he had a couple $100. I had a friend of mine from ComEd, actually. You probably don't remember this guy, Austin, but it's Augie Ropke. I'll never forget. Augie Ropke rebuilt lawnmowers. He had fun rebuilding lawnmowers, and he's actually the guy who got us into NICOR the first time. He introduced him to Mike Johnson, who became a team member of ours, right?
Yep.
But Augie Ropke. I was telling about you starting to mow lawns. I said, I got to find a lawnmower for him, but I want to buy it himself. I'm not buying nothing too nice. He goes, Gary, I rebuild lawnmowers. Come on over to my house and look at them. So a weekend, we went over and looked at his lawnmowers. He had all these old junk lawnmowers he had rebuilt, but he had a nice ride-on, like a 32-inch cut, which is nothing for 2.5 acres that he had to mow our own lawn with, but it was nicely thing. So you looked at it like it was an amazing machine, and oh my gosh, I could buy this myself for $200. So anyway, he ended up buying the best we could find from Augie, and again, 32-inch cut on a 2.5 acre lawn, and every other lawn around us was 1 acre to 2 acres, right? So he might mow. So he started with that, and it took him forever to get a lawnmower. It didn't look very good, but you could pay him $30 or $40 compared to the $150 I was paying.
Cheap labor for real.
But it is, so then eventually, he said, man, this thing, it's taking me too long. How do I get one of those really nice lawnmowers? After he watched landscapers cut and all that, that's when we went and looked, and he said, okay, man, you can pay for a little of this, but you're going to need a loan. So, and I want this loan paid back in a reasonable amount of time.
So you got a loan from this man right here?
Yep.
Okay. And that was one of these zero radiuses, right?
Yeah, it was a
Toro. 0% APR?
No. The lawnmower was a Toro zero radius. I might have gave the loan to him with no interest. I might have paid. I might have charged him. I don't know. I don't think there is interest.
Depends on the day how I felt.
I remember there being interest.
And how gullible he was, right? But either way, it was a zero radius Toro, really nice lawnmower, like $5,000 at the time or something like that. And so, he knew the numbers, he knew how many lawns he had to do to pay it off, and then, started going after a lot of lawns, right? And it was that thing was productive and did a nice job, right?
So let me ask you a question. Did that help you, and I want to keep going forward, but did that help you as far as understanding exactly numbers early when it comes to business now?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember I was really bad at invoicing. I was really bad at paperwork, so he would be looking for me to pay the loan, and I'd be like, oh man, I haven't invoiced in weeks any of my clients, so I didn't get any money in. So had to stay on top of that. But yeah, for sure, it helped me kind of understand, costs of the fuel and obviously my time, but I wasn't really thinking about my time as like a cost per hour at that time, but had to think about the gas that was being used and the loan that had to be paid off. And make sure that I was able to make enough money to do all of that. So definitely kind of got into a little bit more into the bookkeeping, if you will. But But yeah, for a one man team mowing
Yeah,
lawns.
he was an accountant. He was everything. Accountant,
Yeah, I was
the marketer, the everything.
Yeah. I was making good money too. I think like at 14, I was probably making, I don't know, $1,000 a week.
Wow.
I'd say.
Wow.
Close to that.
Wow. That's
14,
pretty good.
Yeah, after you had that lawnmower, I think it's probably up there for
Yeah,
sure.
once I got that other lawnmower.
We lived in a subdivision with big lots, like pretty much middle income, upper middle income subdivision, and big lots. So it's kind of nice because they were all 1-2 acre lots, so that everybody was used to paying a pretty good buck to mow the lawns. Gotcha. And then myself and others had commercial properties around the town we lived in, or a couple towns over where we did business, and so he was able to go after those and get those as well. So he had commercial accounts too at a young age. And back then, I'll say, people didn't look at the workers' comp thing and the liability as much either, because I think today it'd be tougher for a kid to do that.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah.
So what made you stop doing lawnmower? Like, because it seemed like, I mean, if you 13, 14 making $48,000 at a minimum, or 52 grand, $1,000 a week, so.
You can only mow lawns in the summer, right? So there's only a certain amount of time that you can do it. Yeah. But no, so then I think that, I forgot how, I'm not sure entirely how it came up, but my dad had come to me and said that I could make more money, as a subcontractor for him, doing driveways. Gotcha. So I ended up selling my lawnmower to my sister, Janelle, and she took over the lawns, and I saved enough money to buy, I had to take another loan, saved enough money also, though, to buy a skid loader. So
before that, like you're probably 16 and a half, close to 17 when you had enough money to buy that pickup truck. That you used for everything, right?
Yep.
And it was a new truck that he got a big discount on because somebody had passed away, I think is what it was. But
it was nice.
Somebody paid $30-some thousand for this beautiful 4x4 Ford pickup, right?
Yeah, it was an F-250.
F-250.
Yep. Super Duty.
And you picked up for like 22, and it was like no miles on it.
Right.
A couple thousand miles or something like that.
Pretty good.
So he's able to pay cash for that at that point, at 16 and a half years old, right? Which is not common. So his friends driving their parents' cars, cars bought by their parents, kind of, he didn't talk about it or anything. If it was me, I would have been telling everybody, hey man, I bought this thing, man, I owe money, right? He didn't talk about it, but his friends that I knew, most or all, parents bought the cars they drove, right? Which it makes a big difference in your life when you know that you did it yourself. So that was fun to watch that, right? But then eventually he was operating equipment, some of our heavy equipment here and there on the side and doing stuff like that. And the pickup was a 3/4 ton, heavy enough to pull a decent sized trailer and heavy enough to pull a skid steer, right? So I said, hey man, you got all this equipment paid for now. You could think about buying a skid steer and we can subcontract some of these driveways to you to get them ready for us.
Yeah, I don't think that truck was
not quite built for that, but we used it for that.
Use it for that. I don't know that would be allowed today.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so you use a 3/4 ton to pull.
So then obviously in high school, you play any sports or anything from that perspective?
I played basketball for the first 2 years, but I was really more into snowboarding and wakeboarding and skateboarding.
So you're a boarder, gotcha. No wonder we've never played basketball against each other.
Well, I'm still pretty good at basketball. I'd still take you.
You guys should play.
Okay, all right.
He got way better after high school and all that.
Yeah.
He was way better than I've ever seen him play. So you guys should play sometime.
I'm always down.
I like playing, and the problem was I was like 5'2" until I was a junior. So the 2 years I did play basketball, I was 5'2", and everybody else was their height 6 foot or
plus he was
whatever.
5'2" and 50 pounds soaking wet.
Maybe a little more than that, but.
Gotcha.
Okay, but when you look at building that little business that you did, it had to be kind of fun. But you were on top. At first, it was like for him it was a strain to get out there and do these things. Once you got good equipment, it was like, okay, wow, I'm making good money. You seem like you're way motivated compared to when you first started.
Yeah.
But when you bought that equipment and allowed you to do grading and stuff, now a lot more debt now because you had a debt on an expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And now you had to make a lot more money, right?
Yeah. I think the skid loader was, I want to say it was like 60 grand or something like that, 50 maybe. That was the second one because I bought
35 or 40. I
bought a second one that was like new and nice a few years later, and I think that one was like 50 because it was new. But yeah, the first one I think was like 30 or 40. But I had that, and then I also purchased I had to buy a new trailer because the lawn mowing trailer wasn't going to be big enough, and then also had a roller attachment for the skid loader too. But that was only a couple $1,000.
So remember, the fun thing is, again, tough love sometimes, right? So, him and I love him. He knows he's my best buddy, but guarantee you sometimes he says, dang, he's such a pain in the ass. For sure. He's a lot. He
Last
says
night.
that, right? Last night, for example, yeah. So it happens, right? But and sometimes, you go far, the father, too far, but when it came to this truck, this nice truck he was buying, we put it on the business insurance. We looked at insurance personally for him. It would have been a few $1,000s, $3,000-$4,000 to insure that pickup truck for him, right? And so I set the rules then. I said to my wife, and I said to him and his sisters, while I knew they were going to be driving soon, I said, okay, guys, the business is going to pay for your insurance. It's going to be way cheaper for you to go through the business, right? $400, $500, $600 instead of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, right? But you're paying for any accidents you get into. Any accidents, you're not stressing the business. It's not fair to the business if you get an accident and you stress the business in any way. So you're not just going to pay the deductible. You're going to pay 100% of it. So my wife kind of said, yeah, she's like, yeah, right, too. We would never let him make them pay more than deductible, right? I'm saying, no, we're going to. She's like, oh, yeah, right. She never believed that I'd make it. So sure enough, Austin tested it pretty quick. Within like 6 months owning this truck, he rear-ended his buddy. Oh, man. Says it was his buddy's fault somehow, right? But rear ends his buddy and has to pay for his vehicle and his own, which I don't know. I think it was $3,500, $4,500.
I think my truck had like a scratch on the bumper.
Okay, but it was his vehicle was expensive.
Yeah, his vehicle was expensive. Yeah.
Do you remember what it was? How much?
It was probably $4,000, I think.
So it's $4,000. He didn't have $4,000 saved at this point because he bought that truck and its equipment and all this. So he didn't have that much money, right? But his mom looks at me and says, oh, it's $750 for deductible. Poor Austin, he's going to have to pay that deductible. Yeah. He'll learn a good lesson from that, though, right? I said, no, honey, you remember the rules? He's paying all of it. Just, you would not make him do that. $750 is plenty of a lesson. I said, honey, no, he's paying all of it. If it's a good lesson at $750, it's going to be a really good lesson at $4,000 or whatever it was, right? And so sure enough, my wife, Cheryl was mad at me for a while, but I made him pay it all. And emptied his account, right? But there's no stress on the business. He didn't hurt our insurance policy, and he learned a great lesson. And guess what? I just asked him about this question. Did you ever get into another?
I don't think so. I don't think I ever got into another accident that was my fault.
See, there you go. So it paid off.
And this one wasn't my fault either.
There we go.
There's no rear end job. When you rear end somebody, it's always your fault. Right?
No, what happened was there was a car that was dead stopped in the street, and Pat was in front of me, and he didn't see that car, so him and then there was somebody in front of Pat. So that person and Pat both didn't see that car, veered off to the side, and then all of a sudden there was a dead stopped car in front of me. So then I had to steer off, and my truck couldn't stop fast enough in the grass and slid and hit Pat.
You're the driver of your truck, and you're supposed to know how long it takes to stop it, right?
Not in grass, on the road.
I think you got the ticket.
On the road.
Who got the ticket there?
I don't know if there was any ticket actually.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, we were able to talk him out of it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I guess you learned how to charisma from your dad, right there. That's another tip.
I have gotten out of some tickets.
Yeah. All right.
But
he cries. Yeah, I taught him how to cry. No, really, I cry like a little girl.
Yeah.
I do. And it looks terrible, but it works every time.
Yeah.
Austin does exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Like UglyCry.
Oh man. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
And I think that Pat and I had talked to the cop, and said we're buddies. We'll take care of it. We don't need to
go through all of that.
Yeah, don't need a ticket, and we didn't. I think
his buddy
get a
Pat
ticket
Carey
for it.
back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, but again, I think tough love sometimes is important. Sometimes there's a lesson that can be had. I think that's important. And again, to my daughters, my daughter Jordan, which is the youngest, gotten I think 2 rear-end jobs. Right? I think so. One of them got into 2, Janelle or Jordan. I think Jordan did.
I think so.
Janelle, because I'm sure she denied that it was her fault the first time, so of course she got another one, right? Then maybe she realized it's her fault. And that was the motorcycle, I think, the second time. And everything was okay. They didn't get hurt, but it's scary. Anyway, and Janelle got into one also, and all 4 times they had to pay their own every single time. Cheryl was mad at me for like a month after.
Wow.
You're so cheap. This is ridiculous. But it works, I think, right? Yeah. And unfortunately,
Nick's been good so far, right?
Nick, knock on wood. Yeah. Nick's now 18.
There's been a lot of knocking on this podcast.
But Nick doesn't actually like to drive that much. He's very, very, very cautious. He doesn't like to just drive everywhere.
Yeah, don't take him downtown, man. You got to be cautiously aggressive down there. So.
Nothing compared to India, buddy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It's like a cakewalk anywhere here.
So you obviously graduated from Johnsburg, and then and then tell me about
Marion. Yep.
Marion.
So I went to Marion Central.
Okay,
Yep.
There we go. And then after that, what about college? How do you view college with you being a millennial? I think that's probably a good conversation to have too.
I was never very good at school.
Okay.
It wasn't something that came easy. It was, I didn't like it. I didn't like sitting in a classroom. I liked school in the sense of I had a lot of friends there and liked hanging out with people, but just didn't like schoolwork. So I wasn't crazy about college. My mom really wanted me to go, and so I went to Loras College for a year. That's out in Dubuque, Iowa.
Okay.
And did not like Dubuque, Iowa at all. So came back and went to MCC for, I think it was for a semester or something like that. And then thought that I wanted to get into film. Went to Columbia College for a semester. Then didn't really enjoy that. Went to Kendall College. And was at Kendall College in the business entrepreneurship program.
Wait,
so I was in school for 4 years.
You went to another junior college to catch up.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
two different times. Another lesson, another tough lesson, right? Is every time he had to go to a junior college to catch up, or he would have gone in, he had to pay for that.
Yeah.
So that was my deal. I'm not paying for more than 4 years. So you're paying the rest. So he paid to go to junior college to catch up his credits to go to the next.
Yeah. So I went to college for 4 years, but did not graduate. So
Gotcha.
I think I still probably had probably a year of credit to go, and it wasn't something that I preferred to work. So I also did snow removal in the winter with my equipment. So if there was a storm, I would miss class, and because I would be out plowing snow, and so I'd miss class and I'd get behind, and work was just always more important and more fun for me too. So I wasn't crazy about school and didn't probably should have figured that out before spending 4 years in college. But
so let me ask you, and I think this is a good conversation to have just from a perspective of college in itself, or just school in its own right, with you being a millennial and having that experience. What are your thoughts on, because obviously, and let me kind of test this before you kind of put it out there for our listeners. I always say utilize the grocery store approach. You might not agree with everything, but whatever you hear, put it in the cart, keep it moving, or just keep it on the shelf. So when it comes to you specifically, what are your thoughts on college now that we've seen a lot? Or even you as well from that perspective.
Yeah, I think that it's. I don't think it's a one size fits all, right? I think everybody's different. Everybody learns differently. I learned more hands-on and being out in the field and working, and that, I enjoyed that more. So I enjoyed it more, and that's how I learned. I didn't learn very well, sitting in a classroom and listening to lectures, but some people do, right? I think that it's it should be taken on a case-by-case basis, and depending on what you want to go into, and I don't think there's anything wrong with trade school if that's the direction that you want to go, or not go to college at all. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And even when I'm hiring people too, some of the positions obviously require some schooling if we're looking for an engineer or something like that, but if it's not something that requires college, it's not something that I generally look at on an application when we're hiring people.
Gotcha. So, very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So after you, I guess, did all of your schooling and realized, okay, it's just time for me to start doing adulting, right? Yeah. Next thing was, did you get into the family business a little bit?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah. So I was growing up, I always liked working in the field and doing what I was doing, but I knew that I didn't want to work in the field my whole life, and I wasn't entirely certain of what I wanted to do within the family business and whether or not I wanted to get into the family business. I think that was something that I was still kind of exploring, and so I was at, I think it was the last year of school, I was renting my equipment out to Rabine Paving, so the cities in the crews in the city. So I was renting my equipment out, and then I was doing an internship here in the office. So and it was just any kind of project that they needed help with. So at the time, I remember I was helping a lot with Palatine Oil Company, which isn't a Rabine company anymore, but that was a company that I was helping out with a lot. Rabine Paving. whether it's sales or marketing or just research projects that they needed help with. And I really started to enjoy it and built some good relationships in the office here. And that's when the president of Rabine at the time had offered me to come on full time to help out. And it was still, for the first year, it was kind of just a bunch of different projects, learning all the different businesses and different aspects of the business. And then I think it was a year, and then I started with Rabine Paving America, and then maybe it was a couple years, kind of doing a bunch of different projects. But then in Rabine Paving America, I think that's where I found that it was like a business that I really enjoyed, because it was I liked the paving industry, I liked what we were doing, but I didn't necessarily. I've always been interested in technology and scaling a business, and I didn't see the self-performing business as clearly a path for massive scale of a business. But with Rabine Paving America, that was very possible, because it's you don't own your own equipment. We're using partners to perform the work. So since we're outsourcing a lot of that labor, hiring it to partners, then you can scale that a lot easier, right? So you can, you're not limited by where your crews are, where the equipment is, or where your offices are. You can work anywhere because you're hiring that out. So that's when I started to, I think, really become passionate about Rabine Paving America and the business specifically. So in Rabine Paving America, I was operations manager for a while, project manager out in the field. I did sales, account management, estimating, a little bit of everything. And then as of, it was 3 or 4 years ago. 4 years ago.
Nick was...
Yeah, 4 years ago, kind of took over the business as general manager and running that.
So you remember the story, Nick Mathey was one of the Ditch Digger Seal stories. You probably don't even listen to it. You may not have heard of it, Nick.
I haven't listened to Nick's. Oh, sorry, Nick.
You gotta listen to Nick's. Nick's is one of the best.
I was actually listening to Chris's today.
There we go. He said great. Today, too. Yeah. That means it's in his arsenal.
So Nick, our partner and the CEO of Pipeview America, so the story of him, remember? He grew the side business that he started on his own before coming here, from a $50,000 business to $1.5 million or whatever it was in revenues, and then said, man, I really want to go off and run this, Gary. Well, Nick was the guy that was leading Rabine Paving America at the time. So I said, no problem, Nick. If you want to go run this, I know you'll grow it. You're going to do great. We're going to have fun growing it. Who you want to mentor in this? He didn't hesitate. He said, Austin. Austin's the guy. I don't care if he's your son or not. People might say it's just because he's your son. It's not. He's a great guy. I can mentor him in a heartbeat to run this business. That's awesome. That's how that happened. And within a few months, he mentored him in that position. And Austin, not long after, then gives me the what would you say? Gives me the boot, basically. I want to go run this other thing after he figured out. So 2 years later, you can talk about what happened there, but Austin came in the business and saw some efficiencies that could be gained with using technology. So that's how that started.
Well, before we get into that one, what I would like to always look at is kind of the other side of, again, you being a second generation entrepreneur from that perspective. Maybe you've seen some things that your dad has done in businesses, and I think failing is part of success anyway, right? So what are probably some opportunities where you're like, oh, holy crap, it's happened, and that was catastrophic. Okay, let me never let that happen again for me personally, because I always believe the best experiences is someone else's. You know what I mean? So like, probably what are some things that you probably saw just from being part of Rabine for the years that you've had that like, okay, let me make sure as I start site I don't duplicate those opportunities?
That's a good question. I think that you're always learning. I think I've learned everything that I know about business through the Rabine group and the leaders that we have here and my dad, and so I don't know. It's tough. A tough question. I think that as far as things that we saw as failures or things to learn from, you're always trying new things and failing and in business and learning from that. Specifically, I would say, I don't know. That's a good question.
The easy blunt stuff is when we lose a bunch of money.
Right.
Like,
that's the easy stuff.
You got to look into how you lost it. Right. That's probably a simple thing that you
or
see
a
daily,
business
right?
that may have been started that didn't go as expected, and maybe there wasn't enough. I think that one thing, my dad's great at sales and building relationships and building these businesses. Maybe not as good at doing some of the digging into details or research prior to making some decisions, and that's something that I think that he surrounds himself with people that do that. And that's something that I think that I'm slower to.
I usually ask at least 3 people what they think about a business I'm looking at starting, and I get fair answers from them, and then go with it. Usually, if 2 out of 3 like the idea, I usually ask people.
If 0 out of the 3 don't like the idea, and then you still go with it.
No, sometimes it's happened once or twice. But.
Well, let me ask both of you all a question. And for all startup entrepreneurs or business owners who are definitely trying to go from entrepreneur to company, because you both have done it, right? What are probably some pitfalls that you all think that, and again, from a millennial aspect of it, as where you're at and you're growing, and then of course for you having $1.5 billion in revenues plus, what are some pitfalls that you both see that, like, man, people nowadays, if they were just to watch out for this, that might be an issue.
Well, so one of the things that Austin will tell you is my issue is sometimes hiring people I trust that I probably don't do enough due diligence. And they may not bad people, they're just culturally not a fit, right? So I mean, I can think of one that right now that Austin and a couple others said, okay, yeah, maybe he's a good guy, maybe he's really smart, he or she, right? But culturally, no way they're going to fit into our core values, right? And I'm like, come on, that's easy. These are easy core values. They're good people, they'll fit, right? Well, there's a couple of times that Austin's been right, my wife's been right, and other leaders and friends in our business have been right. And so I'm not always right there. I trust first always instead of really. And again, if they're good people, I just think it'll work out. Because good people don't necessarily match culturally with my core values or somebody else's, right? So that's probably my biggest thing, is jumping in relationships that way that probably aren't the best fit. And I think that happens a lot. I think people jump in relationships or hire people or teammates or partners even, right? That probably culturally and core value-wise don't match. I think that's a huge problem that I didn't realize 15 years ago.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the biggest things that for me is really important is understanding the things that I'm not good at or don't want to do. And because if I don't want to do it, then I'm not going to become good at it, right? I can learn it and I can do it and I can get through it if I need to. But if I don't enjoy it, then I'm not going to become really good at it. And I think this is something that my dad had always talked about, was surrounding yourself with good people. So kind of back to the cultural fit and having good people on your team, but also so surrounding yourself with good people, and then people that are better than you at the things that you aren't good at or don't necessarily want to focus on, and focus on your strengths, right, in business. I think that, I forget what it was. It was either in a podcast that I was listening to or a book that I was reading, that it said, people always say focus on your weaknesses and getting better with your weaknesses, right? But there's also a good argument to be made about doubling down on your strengths and things that you're already good at and that you enjoy doing. Double down on that and become the best, or the best that you can at that, or the greatest at that.
That's really good.
But yeah.